Okay, so good afternoon to everyone. Our subject matter for today is all about the special crime investigation. But before we are going to discuss the general principles of investigation, we will discuss first the history. So, pahapyawan na lang natin ito, yung mga personalities. Okay, so these are the following some notable accounts relative to investigation. So, in 2100 BC, in Babylon, at about 1750 BC, Hammurabi, king of Babylon. So, he created the one of the first bodies of written law. The Code of Hammurabi, the code was implemented to detect those who refused to obey the law. It imposed the lex talionis. So, in English term, lex talionis, law of retribution. Principle for the punishment of an offender was equal to what he did. Okay? The principle also refers to the concept known as an eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth. So, an eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth. So, ibig sabihin kung yung offender is pumatay siya, yun din yung gagawin sa kanya. Halimbawa, yung pamilya ng pinatay niya is yung family A, pinatay niya, babawi din yung family B. Papatayin din nila yung pumatay sa family A. Okay? So, meron pa sa ngayon, may mga tribe na ganito, yung tinatawag nating tribal war. So, in Mindanao naman, tinatawag itong rido. Okay? So, yung family versus family, tribe versus tribe. Okay? So, next is Jonathan Wilde, England. So, si Jonathan Wilde, he was a buckle maker and a brothel operator and a master criminal who became the London's most effective criminal investigator. Okay? So, he was the most famous thief catcher in 1720s. He conceived the idea of charging a fee for locating and returning stolen property to the rightful owners. Okay, so ang isang may halimbawa ko dito is yung movie na Lupine. Kung alam nyo yun, kung napanood nyo na yun, yun yung isang example. Yung pinakamagaling na magnanakaw ay naging isang pinakamagaling na criminal investigator. Next is in 1749, Henry Fielding. Si Henry Fielding naman, he founded the Bow Street Runners. This was called London's first professional police force, originally numbered just 8, and was considered as the foundation of all modern police forces. Okay? So, in 1751, Henry published a pamphlet entitled An Inquiry into the Causes of the Late Increase of Robbers, which called for many sweeping changes in the laws and execution of their laws. So, next personality is si John Fielding in 1753. As a younger half-brother of Henry Fielding, he was appointed as personal assistant in 1750. He also helped Henry to root out corruption and improve the competence of those engaged in administering justice in London. Okay, so he also introduced the practice of developing informants, printing wanted notices, employing criminal raids, and bearing firearms and handcuffs. The blink gun was known as the blink break, blink blind. Sorry, rather, the blind gun was known as the blind beak, and allegedly able to recognize 3,000 criminals by the sounds of their voices. Okay, so next is Patrick Cowan. He also published a book known as the Commerce and Policing of the River Thames. He was also credited for his innovation for the critical development, and 3 decades later led to Robert Peel's new police. Colquhoun, together with Master Mariner John Harriot, developed the Marine Police Force, or sometimes known as the Thames River Police. It was said to be the England's first police force. Okay? So, pahapyawan na lang natin to. Ito yung mga na-tackle nyo naman na ito nung first year kayo, second year kayo. So, next is Eugene Francois Vidocq, France. Si Eugene or Francois Vidocq naman established a squad of ex-convicts to aid the Paris police in investigating crimes. He worked under the theory of set a thief to catch a thief. He introduced the concept of Trade Protection Society, which became the forerunner of our present day. Okay? He was also credited as the founder of La Suerte, the France's national detective organization, and was considered as the father of modern criminology in the French police department. And he was also regarded as the first private detective. So, meron dito yung mga personality na lumabas nung time namin. Is may lumabas ditong isa na personality sa board exam. Okay, next is Dr. Edmond Locard. Edmond Locard published Etiquette Criminal et les Méthodes Scientifiques in 1920. He was also a pioneer of forensic science and became known as the Sherlock Holmes of France. He formulated the basic principle of basic science, forensic science. Every contact leave a trace. This became as Locard's. So this became known as Locard's exchange principles. Then next is Robert Peel. Okay? British statesman Sir Robert Peel established the London Metropolitan Police Force, which became the world's first modern organized police force. Okay, so next, in 1839, William Henry Fox Talbot. William Henry Fox Talbot explained his photographic process to the Royal Science of London. This year was known as the birth of photography. So, yan, sa photography, lumalabas to si William Henry Fox Talbot. So, next is Charles Dickens. So, Charles Dickens was a great novelist in which through his story entitled Bleak House, and also he introduced the term detective to the English language. Okay? In 1856, Kate Wynne was the first woman detective in the history of criminal investigation. She was hired by the Pinkerton Agency and contributed to solving big cases in the United States of America. In 1866, Thomas Byroness was a keen-minded individual who trained his detectives in recognizing individual criminal techniques, and he founded the criminal modus operandi. This is a Latin phrase approximately translated as methods of operation. So the term is used to describe someone's habits of working, particularly in the context of business or criminal investigation. In English, it is often shortened as MO. Okay? Modus operandi ang tinatawag na method of operation. Okay? In 1866, Jesse James Gang. The gang made the first hold-up, which marked the beginning of the gang's 15-year-old hold-up and robbery spree. Okay? So, next, in 1877, Howard Vincent. Howard Vincent headed the newly organized Criminal Investigation Department in Scotland. Next, in 1882, Alphonse Bertillon. He introduced the first systematic identification system based on anthropological measurement. He was considered the founder of criminal investigation as well as the father of personal identification. Okay? So, in 1892 rather, Francis Galton. Francis Galton is an Englishman who published his study on classifying fingerprints and recognized the uniqueness of the fingerprints to be used as evidence against a suspect. Okay? So, in 1953, Paul Leland Kirk, a chemist and forensic scientist. Paul Leland Kirk is most known for his work on blood spatter evidence. He applied this expertise on bloodstain pattern analysis to the Sam Shepard homicide case. He published Crime Investigation in 1953, and one of the first comprehensive criminalistics and crime investigation textbooks that encompass theory in additional to practice. Okay? So, next is in 1818 to 1884, Alan Pinkerton. Being engaged in business as a barrel maker in 1846, Alan Pinkerton captured a gang of counterfeiters and was consequently elected as a county sheriff. Okay, so let's proceed to Dr. Hans Gross. In 1847, it was the earliest advocator of criminal investigation as a science. Interested in investigation while serving as an examining magistrate, he became a professor of criminology at the University of Vienna. He also recognized today as the father of criminalistics or forensic science. Okay? So, next is 1859 to 1930. Dr. Arthur C. Doyle. Dr. Arthur C. Doyle is a British physician, novelist, and detective story writer. He is the best known as the creator of the character of Master Sleuth Sherlock Holmes. The characterization of Holmes, particularly his ability of indigenous deductive reasoning. Next is Dr. Alec John Jeffries. So, Dr. Alec John Jeffrey used DNA fingerprinting and profiling to identify Colin Pitchfork as the murderer of 2 young girls in the English Midlands. Significantly, in the course of the investigation, DNA was first used to exonerate an innocent suspect. So, next, Flaviano Guerrero. Si Flaviano Guerrero, he is the only Filipino member of the United States Federal Bureau of Investigation. Okay? So, the evolution of criminal investigation is closely similar with the historical development of criminalistics. Okay, so yung mga binanggit kong pangalan, sila yung mga nag-build dito sa sila yung mga nag-build and sila din yung mga founder ng ibang department or created and father of the investigation. Okay, so let's proceed to general principles of investigation. Okay, so criminal investigation in the Philippines. Okay, so in 1901, the Criminal Investigation Service, now known as CIDG, can trace its humble beginnings out of an urgent need for a unit that would handle investigation of major crimes, especially against national security, and at the same time free other Philippine constabulary units from this time consuming and highly specialized of criminal investigation. Okay, so in 1901 to 1919, during the American occupancy, the Criminal Investigation Service was primarily organized out of the great necessity of the Philippine Constabulary in the investigation of crimes. So, next, in 1913, the genesis of criminal investigation in the Manila Police Department, presently known as the Western Police District, took place in 1913. So, in 1920 to 1936, the Criminal Investigation Service, then known as the Information Service, led to the successful investigation on the Colorum Rebellion, Sakdalista movement, and the Asedillo Uprising. It also became successful in suppressing and investigating crimes, including those committed against the security of the state. Then, in 1936, the Division of Investigation, or DI, was created by virtue of Commonwealth Act number 181 during the reign of the late President Manuel L. Quezon. The DI, with 45 initial members, was organized by Tomas Dugan and Flaviano C. Guerrero, and it was patterned after the Federal Bureau of Investigation, or FBI, of United States of America. So, in 1942 to 1945, during the Japanese occupation, the DI was affiliated with the Bureau of Internal Revenue and the Philippine Constabulary, also known as the Bureau of Investigation. In 1946, the CIS was stopped to perform highly specialized tasks of investigation and intelligence work as a criminal investigation branch. So, in 1947, the Bureau of Investigation was recognized by virtue of Republic Act number 157, and the Department of Justice became its parent agency. RA 157 was later amended by Executive Order 94, renaming the BI to what is known now the National Bureau of Investigation. So, in 1950, the CIS was commissioned to gather intelligence and assume as the role main investigating outfit of the Philippine Constabulary in response to the resurgence of various criminal syndicates like the Black Shirt and the Kamlon Gang, coupled with the organization of various anti-government movements such as the Huk Balahap. Okay? Next, in 1987, the mandate of the 1987 Constitution establishing the National Police Force that should be national in scope and civilian in character under the Department of Interior and Local Government paved the way for the creation of PNP or Philippine National Police. Consequently, the CIS is retained as one of the national support units of the PNP under the name of Criminal Investigation Service Command, the CISC. This distinguishes it from the operating unit of the administrative support pursuant to Republic Act 6975, which assumed the name of the service, while operating support units assumed the name of command. Okay? So, 1991, due to the media publicity, the investigation of sensational cases committed by local executive organized crime groups, the CISC, as mandated by RA 6975, acted as the primary investigating arm of the PNP on major crimes, OCG, and economic sabotage. Okay, so 1994. On September 5, 1994, the Criminal Investigation Service Command was renamed as Criminal Investigation and Detection Group, which is the so-called CIDG, following NAPOLCOM Resolution Number 92-37 with the motto, "We seek the truth." Okay? From its humble inception up to the way it metamorphosed to being the premier arm of the PNP as the spirit and soul of the force. Okay, so in 1996, a SOCO team was appropriately organized to meet the course mission of the Crime Laboratory, which is the National Operating Support Unit of the PNP, by virtue of NAPOLCOM Resolution Number 96-058. Okay, so let's proceed to the general principles of investigation that will be discussed on our next meeting. Okay, so that's end our discussion for today. Palagi kong pinapaalala sa inyo na keep safe and have a great day. Okay?